Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Wanted to share some information that I came across like I always do. Hit the thumbs up for me, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. It helps me, helps the channel, helps all of our brothers and sisters by getting this information out in front of them. This is an article that I saw. The headline caught me here and I wanted to just share it with you. Here we go. The headline is VA says it's closing in on a goal to house 38,000 veterans this year. So I wanted to share that information with you. If it's something that's relevant, great. And if it's not, by sharing and liking, it helps to put this information into the hands of those that may need it. And you having this information also helps you be a little more dangerous when you're having conversations. So jumping into it here, it says with 4 months to go until the end of the calendar year, the Department of Veterans Affairs is nearly 70% of the way to achieving its 2023 goal to provide permanent housing for 38,000 homeless veterans. As of July 31st, the VA had placed 26,470 veterans in permanent housing, with 97% of those remaining housed, according to Jill Albanese, Director of Clinical Operations at the department. The goal of 38,000 was the same in 2023 as it was in 2022, when the VA housed 40,041 people. But with 6% of those veterans having returned to the streets, the VA set a goal guaranteeing that at least 95% of this year's newly housed veterans would get the assistance and support they need to remain in a home. Albanese said that so far 97% of those provided housing this year remain housed, and the VA has worked toward rehousing roughly 680 of those who returned to homelessness. The department also is well on its way to meeting another goal for 2023 to engage with at least 28,000 unsheltered veterans to help them obtain housing and services, having reached 24,285 veterans. These goals to build on the VA's success in housing more than 40,000 veterans in 2022, and all these efforts are to build around the evidence-based housing first approach, which prioritizes getting veterans into housing and then assisting them with the wraparound services they need, Albanese said during a media roundtable Friday. The Biden administration has made reducing homelessness a top priority, providing funding and grants to communities and organizations to get people, including veterans, off the streets and into safe homes. The number of veterans experiencing homelessness dropped by 11% between 2020 and 2022. An estimated 33,136 veterans live on the streets or in homeless shelters on any given night, according to the annual Point in Time, or PIT, survey conducted in January 2022. But the number is not considered a complete accounting of the nation's homeless population because it is an estimate based on the count conducted by volunteers on one day and does not include those living in hotels or staying with family and friends. In addition to getting veterans into homes, and the VA also, and look, I'm going to give a little kind of, insight. I don't know. At the end of this, I was actually the director of a nonprofit helping veterans homeless or at risk of becoming homeless for a little while. So wanted to give a little insight. So moving on, also announced it would award roughly $1 billion in grants to community organizations and housing assistance groups that help veterans, homeless veterans, are able to rehouse veterans and families who have lost homes and provide prevention services to those at risk of losing their homes. These grants will allow VA, alongside our community partners, to help provide more housing and wraparound services to more homeless and at-risk veterans than ever before, the VA secretary said in a statement released Monday. The VA has a national call center for homeless veterans facing eviction or struggling with homelessness, and that phone number is 877-424-3838. That concludes the article that I found here on military.com. So, great. Now, the homeless count, the PIT count, is really a difficult thing. It's a once a year thing, and like they said, it's a lot of volunteers, and you essentially have however many square blocks you have of a city, and you drive around and you look around and you go, okay, that person looks like they're homeless, and that person looks like they're homeless. That person's, they're laying in a sleeping bag on the street. They're homeless. That's one person there. Oh, there's two people laying there. So, okay, that's two. And you're literally doing that, Then when it comes to veterans, it's even more shaky, because now you're trying to go up and ask people, hey, did you ever serve in the military? Some of them being homeless in general, not being a veteran, typically that's a group of people that we'll try to be polite here, as resourceful as possible. And in some cases, they will lie and say they are a veteran, right? Because maybe somebody's going to give them something extra, right? So there's that, and it's hard to kind of find people all the time. So the point in time counts are always kind of wishy-washy, and you get more money if you have more homeless people. So if you went around and you saw no homeless people, well, now you get no money for that because you don't have any homeless problem. So that part's a little bit funky. The way that it worked where I was, we received money from SSVF, so SSVF grant funding, which is Supportive Services Veterans Families, and it comes from the VA. And we ran about an 80-20 split. 80% of the money for the year, right? You get it federal year, so October through September. 80% of the money you get is used to help combat homelessness directly. If you're not combating homelessness directly and you're trying to prevent it, right, then you work out of the 20% pot. So somebody who is on the street and they need money for, let's say, the first month rent. They don't have enough money for first month rent, and that's all they need to get into a place. They got a new job, everything's back in place, they're working again, but they just don't have the money saved up to get into a place. That would be combating the homelessness out of the 80% pot, pay that first month's security deposit for them. Then you may have somebody else who's renting and they haven't paid their PG&E bill because they've ran out of money, they lost their job or whatever, and now they have a turn-off notice, hey, we're going to shut off your electric, your gas or electric or any of that type of stuff. Then what happens is, or your water, any sort of utility. So if you have that sort of an issue, then what's going to happen is you're going to go onto that 20% pot, because if somebody lives in a home that does not have water, electricity, gas, those types of things, the home is essentially not habitable, and therefore kind of you're homeless at that point. I mean, you have a shelter, but you're not in a fully conducive place for habitation, right? So you would then pull onto the 20% pot to help with that. So just to give a little insight. Anyway, thanks for watching. Glad to share the information. Hope you have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.